Welcome, everybody, to the Stop Devaluation Movement podcast. The very fact that you're listening to this shows me that you have the heart to raise the bar on your leadership influence, your leadership impact, your ability to rise up and become the best version of yourself. And as I share some of these things today, I'd first of all like to share my heart. Because my heart is to see every leader influence societal design by being an instrument of justice. And there's three basic words that have really impacted my life and have shaped my leadership influence for the last 25 years or more. And the first word is leadership. And I think we all need to know our target group, our realm of influence, where we're called to impact on the highest degree. And for me, it's leaders, whether it's emerging leaders or established leaders. If I can invest into leadership, then I recognize every person that leader impacts, I have the ability to empower them to influence their sphere of influence. And so leadership is a very, very big deal for me. The second word that really drives me is justice. And justice is power used for good, where injustice is where I abuse my power. So when we as leaders use our power for the good of others, we are automatically functioning as an instrument of justice, and we're going to impact our world for good. And that's a very big deal. I mean, in society right now, we are seeing so many levels of injustice, from the little things in lives and communities and families all the way to the highest offices in the land. And our hearts are breaking when someone uses their power and their leadership and their position and their title to take advantage of others. And so when I talk about being an instrument of justice, I'm talking about being that leader that says, I'm going to use my voice, my platform, my influence, my abilities and talents and competencies to empower not only individuals to be a success, but influence society. And the third word that is driving me is validation. Stop devaluation movement, right? And so it's validation. And I've learned that the more we love, value, honor, and celebrate others, it has the ability to impact their heart, to heal their heart, to release creativity on the inside of them, to set them up so they can arise and really be the best version of themselves. And so every leader has the ability to not only impact individuals, but also to influence culture or societal design or the systemic works of society. So I think there's three main keys, and I write about this in my Higher Living Leadership book. But there's three main keys that I believe empower us to raise our own leadership bar. And the first one is higher thinking. And if you think about this, if you ever Google it, it'll say, how many choices do you make in a day? And the average is 35,000 choices we make in a day. And so if I think about all these choices I make every day, I have to think about what I think about. And we have a thought every 1/32nd of a second. Now, a lot of those things might be subconscious thoughts, but the fact is, it shows that there is constant information feeding into our mind brain every day, every moment of the day. And so every thought we accept, we embrace, we receive, we think on those thoughts. It creates emotion, it creates attitude, ultimately creating a mindset or a belief system. And from that place, we make every decision. It's our actions are a result of what we believe. And so often we say, I don't like what you do, but I never think about what that person's believing. And I've learned when we respond in unhealthy ways, it's because we're believing in unhealthy ways. And if I can raise the bar on the way I think, that I'm going to build healthy, productive, healing memory rather than destructive and things like, offense and unforgiveness and criticalness and judgment and blaming and attacking and devaluation, we don't realize if we devalue somebody else, it's actually hurting our mind brain. If we are critical of someone else, we're actually hurting our mind brain. We're creating unhealthy memories. So that's not where we really want to go. We want to think about what we're thinking about, raise the bar on our thinking so that we think healthy thoughts. And in that process, we can actually rewrite the instructions of our mind brain. You ever hear, how long does it take to build a habit? Well, 21 days. If I do something for 21 days, I establish a habit. But if we go another 42 days, if we additionally double that, it begins to develop an automatic pattern of thought. Therefore, if we think and focus on raising the way we think to places of health, of places of life, of places of justice, of places of validation, if we do that for 63 days, we will begin to automatically think in a healthy way rather than an unhealthy way. If we think in the way of like, I want to use my leadership influence for the good of others, and we focus on that daily for 63 days, that'll become who I am. It's powerful to raise our bar on thinking. The second is taking higher responsibility. And that means I'm going to refuse to conform to the cultural norms. I'm going to refuse to echo the loudest voices in society. I'm going to walk with an independent way of taking responsibility for my own life. I'm assuming responsibility of my own health, my family's health, my impact on society. That's a big one. Because when I take responsibility on how I show up and how I impact my community, my workplace, every area of my life, when I recognize it's not what other people do, but what I choose to do. It's not someone else's responses. It's my responses that will shape what I experience and what I bring to the table. That's taking higher responsibility. Because see, our leadership ability has the very nature to build relational and trust equity. And that is just so important that I take responsibility to build trust in my spheres of influence, that I take responsibility to develop relationships that are life-giving, that there's an exchange of win-win partnerships and collaboration, that I'm willing to work hard to produce so much that is good for society. I'll tell you, so much in our society today, people are looking for ways to work less and get other people to do stuff for them. No, that's really destructive to our own health and our own maturation process. But the more we take responsibility to give our best, even in areas of work and labor and investment, not only are we raising the bar on our own higher leadership responsibility, but we'll have greater impact in our world. And we need to take higher responsibility in bringing validation to the table. I'm not going to teach all this right now, but there's something that I teach called validation quotient. I've been teaching it in the marketplace arena for about 10 years, and it's based upon the science of axiology, which is the mind-brain science of value generation. And it basically says, my highest level of value must be placed upon people's intrinsic worth, where people have the highest priority in my life. Then secondarily, it would be extrinsic worth, meaning what these people bring to their table, their skills, their abilities, their potential, their competencies. And so I value them first, and then I value what they bring to the table. And thirdly, which is the least of the value values, but still very important, very necessary, is I value systemic worth. Because see, we develop systemic structures to empower people to release their competencies, their abilities, their passions, their purposes. Why? So that there can be a full actualization of their value in our world. And when we assume higher responsibility as a leader, we will impact not just society, but each person on all those levels of validation. And the last key that I want to talk about is assuming and embracing a higher cause. It is the shallowest, lowest level way to live when we focus solely on our success. In fact, if our world revolves around us, we will become an instrument of injustice, using people for our gain, using people in unjust ways so we can, quote unquote, be successful. And I know when I was young, I moved to Washington, D.C. I was going to change the world and I was going to climb the corporate ladder, as it were, or the governmental ladder, because I worked for the FBI. And I got in there and honestly, I just adopted this culture. If I'm going to get ahead, I got to step on others. The only way to protect myself is to hinder others. And I just really had this, it's all about me mindset, a very selfish mindset. And I know that I did things that were unjust and I used people for my gain. And it was a very shallow, unrewarding, destructive way of climbing the corporate ladder. No, I would rather not go as high on the quote unquote corporate ladder and literally impact people in society for good than to have some platform, some title, some leadership hoopla that says, oh, Melodye, you're so great. No, that is not just shallow, but it's not rewarding either. So when we use our power for good, for justice, and serve a higher cause, serve something that is so much greater than ourselves, literally inside of us, there's a sense of significance. There's a sense of importance. We recognize our life is more than our position, but it's making that investment by serving a higher cause. Because guess what, guys? We want to leave a legacy. We want to care about future generations. We want to see the organizations we're connected to fulfill their reason for being. We want to be so connected to shared vision and shared values that we become a part of collaboration and partnerships that build that relational equity that I talked about earlier. And so I just got to share my heart with you today because this is what I live for. And this is why I started the Stop Devaluation movement. This is why I have the YouTube channel and this podcast channel. This is why, I have written small free ebook downloads. It's not just about making money in any way, shape, or form. Even though I have a consulting company, I have to do business because I have to pay my bills. But the fact is, my business isn't about just making money. It's about doing something that impacts those organizations and creates cultures in those organizations that are validating cultures and honor building cultures and ones that really care for one another. Because we have a couple basic core needs. And one is to be in a place of safety and be in a place of belonging. And if we become these types of leaders, we'll not only have safety and belonging in our leadership impact, but we will be able to attract people that want a cause to work for, not just money. Because we can have a calling, but our vocation is not our calling. When we, however, though, can weave our calling into our vocation, then there is so much fulfillment. My heart is that you are inspired by the vision that I carry, because I believe this heart has the ability to influence society for good, so that literally our workplaces and our communities can be places of healing and restoration and justice, and that there would be true, honest celebration of all of humanity, because we'll never have prejudice, biases, assumptions, and stereotypes, or if they rise up inside of us and I go, oh, Melodye, that was a biased thought, or that was a stereotypical thought. Man, if we move to higher levels of thinking, assume higher levels of responsibility, and serve a higher cause, we will be leaders that will truly influence our world for good. And so I give you an invitation today to be a part of this movement, to be a part of those leaders that will be instruments of justice, that will influence societal design for good, and that you will seriously think about how you think about the responsibility that you assume, and think about what you're really serving. So thank you for joining me today on this podcast. I love you all. I celebrate you all. And I invite you to be a part of the message of Stop Devaluation by valuing all of humanity. Thank you so much for joining me today. God bless you. Bye-bye. I want to thank you for listening and encourage you to become a part of the Stop Devaluation movement. Be sure to like and follow #Stop Devaluation on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and visit stopdevaluation.com for more information and free resources. You can help spread the movement by sharing with others, leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, and most of all, by living a courageous lifestyle of using your power for good. Go out and value someone today. Your life matters, and you can make the world a better place. One word, one choice, one action of validation at a time.